My husband said we needed to start being completely honest with each other about everything. So I stopped lying to him. Now he's filing for divorce and telling everyone I'm cruel. His name is Brian, and this started maybe 6 weeks ago. Could have been 7. Time gets fuzzy when you're not sleeping well. He came home from his weekly poker game talking about some article one of the guys had shared. About radical honesty in marriage. How couples who practiced complete transparency had stronger relationships. I was washing dishes when he started explaining this to me. Had my hands in soapy water scrubbing a pan that had burned on residue from dinner. I said that sounds interesting and kept scrubbing. He came up behind me at the sink. Put his hands on my shoulders. Said we should try it. That we'd gotten too comfortable with white lies and omissions. That real intimacy required brutal honesty about everything. I asked what he meant by everything. He said everything. How we really feel about decisions we make. What we actually think about each other's families. Our true opinions instead of the polite versions. I told him we were already pretty honest with each other about important stuff. That some things were better left unsaid because saying them would just hurt feelings for no good reason. He moved his hands off my shoulders. Said that was exactly the toxic positivity that ruins marriages. I tried explaining that after 12 years together I knew he was sensitive about certain things. That complete honesty might not work the way he imagined it would. He got defensive. Said I was infantilizing him by suggesting he couldn't handle truth. Then he said if I was this resistant I must be hiding something major. Which proved we needed radical honesty even more. For the next 9 days he wouldn't stop bringing it up. Left sticky notes around the house with quotes about authenticity. Played podcasts about vulnerable communication while I was trying to work from home. Sent me articles at all hours with subjects like read this and this is us. On Wednesday morning he woke me up at 5:30. Said we needed to discuss why I was afraid of transparency. What I thought would happen if I told him the real truth about things. I was exhausted. Had barely slept because he'd been tossing around all night, clearly worked up about this whole thing. I said fine. We'll do brutal honesty. Whatever you want. He actually smiled. Hugged me. Said this was going to revolutionize our marriage. Take us to a level of connection we'd never experienced before. That same afternoon he asked how I thought his presentation had gone. He'd been preparing for weeks. Practicing in front of the mirror. Asking me to listen to him rehearse. Wanted my real opinion. I said honestly I thought he'd over-rehearsed it to the point where it sounded memorized and fake. That his natural speaking style was better. That his boss probably noticed how stiff he'd been. His face changed. Got this tight look around his mouth. Said I'd never mentioned that during any of his practice sessions. I reminded him this was his idea. Complete honesty. No filters. He said right. Of course. That he appreciated the feedback even though it was hard to hear. Thursday his mother called. Asked if we wanted to come to her birthday dinner on Saturday. Brian looked at me. I said I'd rather not go because his mother spent every visit making passive-aggressive comments about my weight and I was tired of it. Brian looked shocked. Told his mother we'd call her back. Hung up and asked what I was talking about. I listed specific examples. The comments about portion sizes. The suggestions about gym memberships. The worried looks when I got second helpings. He said his mother was just concerned about my health. I said his mother was being rude and he always defended her instead of me. That I'd been swallowing my anger for years because it was easier than fighting. We didn't go to the birthday dinner. Brian called his mother back with some excuse about food poisoning. But I could see him thinking about what I'd said. Processing it. Friday night his best friend Chad came over to watch a game. Started complaining about his girlfriend. Going on about how she didn't understand him. How demanding she was. I said it was interesting he never took responsibility for anything in his relationships. That every story was about what someone else did wrong. That maybe that's why none of his relationships lasted. Chad stopped mid-sentence. Looked at Brian. Brian looked at his beer. I said Brian had asked me to be completely honest. This was me being completely honest. Chad left during halftime. Said he remembered he had somewhere to be. Brian didn't walk him to the door. After Chad left, Brian said that was unnecessary. That I'd been rude to his best friend. I asked which part was untrue. He couldn't answer. Saturday we went to the grocery store together. Something we usually did on weekends. He was pushing the cart. I was picking items off shelves. He asked if I wanted to get ingredients for that pasta dish I used to make. I said I'd never actually liked making that dish. That I'd only made it because he loved it. That spending 2 hours on a meal that took 10 minutes to eat felt like a waste of time. He stopped pushing the cart. Asked why I'd made it so many times if I hated it. I said I never said I hated it. Just said I didn't enjoy making it. That there was a difference. He said this felt like semantics. I said words meant specific things. That he'd asked for honesty and honesty required precision. We finished shopping in silence. Sunday his sister came over for coffee. She did this most Sundays. Would show up around 10 and stay until noon talking about her kids and her job and her remodeling project. Going on and on without ever asking about our lives. After about 40 minutes I said it was interesting she never asked us any questions. That I'd been tracking it and the conversation was about 95% her, 5% us. She looked confused. Asked what I meant. I said exactly what I said. That every visit was her talking about herself. That it got exhausting. Brian's sister looked at him, waiting for him to say something. He just sat there. She finished her coffee quickly and left. Didn't hug either of us goodbye like she usually did. After she left, Brian said I'd been cruel. That there was a difference between honesty and being mean. I asked him to explain where that line was exactly. He said I should know. I said apparently I didn't. Monday morning he asked if I thought his new haircut looked good. He'd gotten it cut on Friday. Short on the sides. Longer on top. He'd been talking about trying this style for months. I looked at it. Really looked. Said honestly it didn't suit his face shape. Made his forehead look bigger. That his old style was better. He touched his hair. Asked why I hadn't said anything when he came home Friday. I said he hadn't asked on Friday. He was asking now. He went quiet. Didn't talk to me for the rest of the day. Tuesday we had dinner with his parents. His father started talking about golf. How he'd gotten a hole in one last weekend. How the guys at the club couldn't believe it. I said I noticed he never asked Brian about his hobbies. That Brian had been training for a marathon for 4 months and his father hadn't asked about it once. His father looked at Brian. Asked when he'd started running. Brian said 4 months ago. His father said he didn't know that. I said that's because he only talks about himself. Never listens. Never asks questions about other people's lives. Brian's mother said maybe we should change the subject. I said sure. We could talk about how she comments on my weight every time we visit even though Brian asked her to stop years ago. She looked hurt. Said she never meant anything by those comments. Just wanted me to be healthy. I said she wanted me to be thinner. That health was just the socially acceptable way to say it. Brian didn't say anything. Just looked at his plate. His father said this was getting uncomfortable. I said good. Discomfort meant we were finally being honest instead of polite. We left before dessert. Brian didn't speak to me the whole drive home. When we got to the house he went straight to the bedroom and closed the door. I slept on the couch that night. Could hear him on the phone through the door. Talking to someone. Probably his brother. Wednesday morning he was packing a bag when I woke up. Said he needed space. Was going to stay with his brother for a while. Think things through. I said okay. He looked at me like he'd expected me to beg him to stay. When I didn't he picked up his bag and left. His mother called that afternoon. Said I'd hurt her son. That I'd been unspeakably cruel. That she'd never seen this side of me and it was disturbing. I said this was the side I'd been hiding for 12 years. That Brian had demanded to see it. That I was just giving him what he asked for. She said I was twisting his words. That obviously he'd meant something different by honesty. I asked how I was supposed to know what he meant when his words said something else. She hung up on me. Brian's sister called next. Said I'd been completely inappropriate on Sunday. That she'd always been supportive of me and I'd attacked her. I asked when the last time was she'd asked about my life. Long silence. Then she said she asked about me all the time. I said name one thing you know about my job. One project I'm working on. One challenge I've mentioned. She couldn't. Started getting defensive. Said that didn't prove anything. I said it proved exactly what I'd said. She hung up. Chad called on Thursday. Said Brian had told him everything. That he couldn't believe I'd said those things about him. I asked what specifically was false in what I'd said. He paused. Then said it wasn't about true or false. It was about being kind. I said Brian asked for honesty, not kindness. Those were different things. He said I was being deliberately obtuse. I said I understood perfectly. He didn't like hearing the truth about himself. He hung up frustrated. Friday Brian texted. Said we needed to talk. I suggested he come home. He said he wasn't ready for that. Could we meet for coffee? We met at a place downtown. One we used to go to when we were dating. He looked terrible. Hadn't shaved. Dark circles under his eyes. Asked if I was happy now. If destroying his family relationships had been my goal all along. I said I hadn't destroyed anything. Just told the truth. The truth he'd been demanding for over a week. He said I knew what he meant. That I was purposely misunderstanding to punish him for something. I asked him to explain what he'd actually meant by radical honesty. He stumbled over his explanation. Said he'd wanted us to be more open. More vulnerable. To share deeper feelings. I said those were abstract concepts. That honesty was concrete. Truth or lies. He got upset. Said I'd changed. That I wasn't the person he married. I said I'd always been this person. Had just been hiding it to make everything easier for everyone else. We sat there in silence. Other customers coming and going around us. Finally he asked if I even wanted to save our marriage. I said that depended on what saving it meant. If it meant going back to lying and pretending everything was fine I could do that. But then he needed to stop talking about honesty and authenticity. If it meant actually being honest then he needed to accept what that looked like. He said that wasn't fair. I said nothing about this was fair. That he'd asked for something without understanding what he was asking for. Now he was dealing with the consequences. I finished my coffee and left. He stayed sitting there. Monday his brother called. Said he wanted to meet. talk about what was happening. We met for lunch at a sandwich place near his office. He said Brian had been staying with him. That Brian was a mess. Couldn't sleep. Wasn't eating much. Spent all his time trying to figure out where things went wrong. I asked if Brian had explained about the honesty policy. He said yes. That Brian had told him everything. I asked what he thought about it. He was quiet for a while. Then said maybe both of us had a point. That Brian had asked for something without thinking it through. But that I'd taken it further than necessary. I asked where the line was. When honesty became too much. He said he didn't know. But that there was a difference between being honest and being brutal. I said Brian had specifically asked for brutal honesty. Had used that exact phrase. That I was giving him what he demanded. He paid for lunch. Said he hoped we could work it out. But that if we couldn't, he'd understand. Tuesday I got a call from a lawyer. Said Brian had retained him to handle the divorce. That I should expect to receive papers soon. Asked if I had legal representation. I said not yet. He gave me the name of someone he'd worked with before. Said she was good. Fair. I called her that afternoon. Her name was Patricia. Had an office downtown. Met with her on Wednesday. She asked what happened. I explained about the honesty policy. About Brian demanding transparency then falling apart when he got it. She said she'd seen similar cases. People asking for honesty without understanding what they were asking for. Said it happened more than you'd think. We discussed assets. The house was in both our names. We had some savings. 2 cars. Nothing complicated. She said it should be straightforward if we could avoid fighting. I asked what the chances were we could avoid fighting. She said based on what I'd told her, not good. That Brian sounded angry. Hurt. That hurt people fought dirty. Thursday the divorce papers arrived. I read through them. Brian wanted the house. Half the savings. His car obviously. Some furniture items that had been in his family. I called Patricia. She said we could contest the house. That I had as much right to it as he did. I said I didn't care about the house. Didn't want to fight over things. She said that was admirable, but I should think carefully. That the house had value. That I deserved my fair share. I said I'd think about it. Friday Brian's mother showed up at my door. Didn't call first. Just appeared. Said we needed to talk about what I'd done to her son. I let her in. Made coffee. She sat at the kitchen table and started crying. Said Brian was devastated. That I'd destroyed him. That she didn't understand how I could be so cruel. I asked what I'd done that was cruel. She said the things I'd said to his family. To his friends. To him. I asked what specifically had been untrue. She couldn't point to anything specific. Just kept saying it was cruel. That truth didn't have to be harsh. I said sometimes it did. That some truths were inherently harsh. She asked if I'd ever loved her son. I said of course. That I'd loved him enough to lie to him for 12 years. To hide parts of myself to make him comfortable. That his demand for honesty had finally let me stop. She left without finishing her coffee. Saturday I went to see my own mother. Told her everything. About Brian's demand for honesty. About how it had blown up our marriage. About the divorce papers. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked how I felt about it all. I said lighter. That I'd been carrying the weight of all those lies for years without realizing how heavy they were. She asked if I regretted telling the truth. I said no. That even if it cost me my marriage, I didn't regret it. That being myself felt better than performing. She hugged me. Said she was proud of me for standing up for myself. Even if it was hard. Sunday I started looking for apartments. Figured even if I fought for the house it would take months. Might as well find somewhere new to live. Found a 1-bedroom about 20 minutes away. Good neighborhood. Walking distance to shops. Sent in an application. Got approved 2 days later. Started packing my things. Clothes first. Books. Kitchen items I knew Brian wouldn't want. Left the furniture. Let him deal with it. Brian came by while I was packing. Let himself in with his key. Looked around at the boxes. Asked what I was doing. I said moving out. That he wanted the house so he could have it. He said we hadn't agreed to that yet. I said I didn't want to fight about it. He could have the house. He looked confused. Asked why. I said because it didn't matter to me. It was just a house. He said it mattered to him. I said then he should have it. He asked where I was going. I gave him the address of my new apartment. He wrote it down. Asked if we could still talk sometimes. Try to work things out. I said I didn't think there was anything to work out. That we wanted different things. He wanted honesty that felt good. I wanted actual honesty. Those weren't compatible. He left looking defeated. Moved into my apartment the following weekend. My brother helped. He didn't ask many questions. Just helped carry boxes and set up furniture. When we were done, he asked if I was okay. I said yeah. That I was actually better than I'd been in years. He looked skeptical but didn't push. The divorce took 4 months to finalize. Patricia was right. Brian fought. Wanted me to pay for half of things I'd never agreed to. Claimed I'd been emotionally abusive with my honesty. The judge didn't buy it. Said Brian had asked for honesty and got it. That wasn't abuse. Split everything down the middle except the house, which went to Brian like I'd agreed. The day the divorce was finalized, I felt nothing. No sadness. No relief. Just nothing. Like closing a book I'd finished reading. Started therapy a few weeks later. My mother suggested it. Said it might help me process everything. The therapist's name was Dr. Williams. She had an office that smelled like vanilla candles. Asked why I was there. I explained about Brian and the honesty and the divorce. She listened carefully. Asked how I felt about it all. I said I felt free but also confused. That I'd been lying for so long I wasn't sure who I actually was. She said that was normal. That people who performed for years often lost touch with their authentic selves. That it would take time to figure out who I was without the performance. We met weekly. She helped me understand that I'd been people-pleasing since childhood. That I'd learned to hide my real thoughts and feelings to avoid conflict. That Brian's demand had accidentally broken that pattern. I started noticing how often I lied in daily life. Small lies. Telling cashiers I was fine when they asked. Saying I like things I didn't. Agreeing with people to avoid disagreement. Started practicing small truths. When people asked how I was, I told them. When I didn't like something, I said so. Most people didn't notice. Some looked uncomfortable. My coworker Jennifer asked if I wanted to get drinks after work. I said no. She asked why not. I said because I didn't want to. She looked surprised. Asked if she'd done something wrong. I said no. That I just didn't feel like going out. That it wasn't personal. She said okay and walked away looking confused. Later my boss asked about it. Said Jennifer seemed upset. I explained what happened. He said I could have been gentler. I said Jennifer asked why. I answered honestly. He said there were ways to be honest without being blunt. I said maybe. But I was tired of managing other people's feelings. He didn't know what to say to that. Started dating after about 6 months. Put on my profile that I valued honesty and directness. Most men didn't message me. The ones who did usually couldn't handle it. One guy asked if I thought he was attractive. I said moderately. He unmatched immediately. Another asked if I wanted kids. I said no. He asked if I might change my mind. I said no. He said most women did. I said I wasn't most women. He stopped responding. Met someone named David through a friend. He was quiet. Worked as an engineer. Asked questions and actually listened to the answers. On our third date, he asked what happened with my marriage. I told him the whole story. About Brian demanding honesty. About me giving it to him. About how it ended. He was quiet for a while. Then said he appreciated directness. That playing games was exhausting. We kept seeing each other. 6 months into dating, David asked if I saw a future with him. I said maybe. That I enjoyed his company but wasn't sure about long-term yet. He said that was fair. That he felt similarly. Year into dating, we moved in together. Not because we were rushing. Because it made financial sense and we spent most nights together anyway. His family met me and didn't know what to make of me. His mother asked if I liked her pot roast. I said it was overcooked. She looked shocked. David laughed. Later his mother pulled him aside. I heard her asking if I was always like this. He said yes. She asked how he dealt with it. He said he liked it. That he always knew where he stood. Brian reached out 2 years after the divorce. Sent an email. Said he'd been thinking about everything. That he'd been in therapy. That he understood now what had happened. Said he'd asked for honesty without understanding what he was asking for. That he'd wanted validation disguised as truth. That I'd given him actual truth and he couldn't handle it. Said he was sorry for how things ended. That he hoped I was doing well. I didn't respond. David asked if I wanted to. I said no. That Brian and I had nothing to say to each other anymore. That chapter was closed. 3 years after the divorce, I married David. Small ceremony. Just immediate family. His mother asked if I was sure I wanted to wear that dress. I said yes. She said it was very plain. I said that's why I liked it. David's father asked him privately if he was sure about marrying me. David said completely sure. His father said I was very direct. David said he knew. His father said good luck. We honeymooned in Iceland. Spent a week hiking and seeing waterfalls. No pressure to perform. No lies to maintain. Just being ourselves. On our last night, David asked if I was happy. I said yes. He said good. That's all he wanted. For years after the divorce, my mother called. Said she'd run into Brian's mother at the grocery store. That Brian had remarried. Had a baby on the way. I said that was nice. My mother asked if I cared. I said no. That I hoped he was happy, but it didn't affect me either way. She said she was proud of how I'd handled everything. That leaving that marriage was the right choice. I said I knew. 5 years after the divorce, David and I were having dinner. He asked if I ever thought about Brian. About what happened. I said sometimes. But not often. He asked if I regretted how it ended. I said no. That Brian had asked for honesty. I gave him honesty. That his inability to handle it wasn't my fault. David said he loved that about me. That I didn't apologize for being myself. I said I'd done enough apologizing in my first marriage. Wasn't going to do it again. 6 years after the divorce, I was happy. Had a job I liked. A husband who accepted me as I was. Friends who appreciated directness. A life built on truth instead of performance. Sometimes I wondered what would have happened if I'd refused Brian's demand for honesty. If I'd kept lying and performing. If we'd stayed married. But I didn't wonder long. Because that version of me was exhausted. Was disappearing under the weight of all those lies. Was becoming someone I didn't recognize. Brian had accidentally given me permission to stop performing. To be honest even when it was uncomfortable. To choose truth over peace. It had cost me my marriage. My relationship with his family. Some friendships. But it had given me myself back. That trade was worth it. 7 years after the divorce, David asked if I'd ever told Brian thank you. For demanding honesty even though he couldn't handle it. I said no. He asked if I wanted to. I thought about it. Said maybe. That Brian had given me something valuable even if he hadn't meant to. I sent an email. Short. Said thank you for asking for honesty. That it had changed my life. That I hoped he was doing well. He responded a week later. Said he was glad something good came from it. That his therapist said the same thing had happened to him. That the experience taught him what he actually wanted. We exchanged a few more emails. Nothing deep. Just friendly. Then stopped. There was nothing more to say. 8 years after the divorce, I was watching TV with David. Some show about relationships. The couple on screen was fighting about honesty. David said it reminded him of my story. I said most relationship problems came down to honesty. Either too much or not enough. He said we'd found the right balance. I agreed. 9 years after the divorce, my mother asked if I ever missed being married to Brian. I said no. She asked if there was anything about that relationship I missed. I thought about it. Said maybe the comfort of performing. Of knowing exactly what to say and do. Of never having to think about it. But that comfort had been suffocating. She said comfort often was. That growth required discomfort. I said Brian had given me that without meaning to. 10 years after the divorce, I was exactly where I wanted to be. Married to someone who valued truth. Living authentically. No performance required. Brian had demanded radical honesty thinking it would bring us closer. Instead it showed us we'd never been close. Just performing closeness. The real me had been buried under 12 years of lies and people-pleasing. His demand for honesty had accidentally freed her. I was grateful for that even if he wasn't. Sometimes I thought about reaching out again. Telling him how that week changed everything. How his demand for truth had been the best thing that happened to me. But I didn't. Because Brian and I understood different things by honesty. He'd wanted honesty that felt good. I wanted actual honesty. We'd both gotten what we needed in the end. Just not from each other. The truth had destroyed our marriage. But our marriage had been built on lies anyway. Better to destroy something false than maintain it forever. Brian had given me permission to stop lying. To be myself. To choose truth over comfort. That gift was worth everything it cost.